Looks like the weather's going to work out pretty nice for us.
And take a look at the satellite view today.
And not too long ago, we were up near, I believe, Sellersburg, Indiana. We heard about a phenomenal young man by the name of Michael Cleveland, who's from Henryville, Indiana. Now, Michael is 9 years old. He was born totally blind with a cleft palate, cleft lip. He later developed severe ear infections, which cost him 80% of the hearing in his left ear. You name it, Michael has been through everything. But one thing about Michael, he has incredible courage.
Here's your 10-time IBMA Fiddle Player of the Year, Michael Cleveland.
All right, here we go.
There are many fiddlers that are precise and precision and perfectly in tune and never miss a note and on and on and on, but a lot of times there's nothing about that gets inside of me and moves me. That's what playing is about, is emotion. It's not how much you can play, and it's how you can communicate with somebody. You can take a voice or an instrument or a song or a melody. That's what I like with music, is being moved, not impressed. And that's what he does when he plays. He moves me. It's wicked to see how much music he pulls out of a bow. He's untouchable. When you talk about really world-class musicians that don't have their sight, is their awareness is so much deeper than yours would ever be, or mine would ever be. It's all done with their ears. And I think sometimes that's why a musician like that is better than somebody else, is because there's nothing here to distract you and screw you up, you know.
Well, he's just so smooth. He can play anything, slow, fast. He's just a good old boy, and I just love it. I mean, you can just sit there, and if you're not patting your feet when Michael Cleveland's on, you better check your heart, because, by gosh, he's the real deal.
He is an expert, world topper and top of the world. That's the one thing I can say, top of the world.
Here's the thing, I mean, he can play bluegrass, but he can play jazz, and he can play blues, and he can play rock, and pretty much anything, country, western swing, anything you throw at him, you know, which is a rare thing, because, I mean, there are players who, they have their niche, but he's got all these different facets that a lot of players don't have, you know.
His love of the music, that's the thing that impresses me. I mean, Michael loves bluegrass, and there's nothing phony about Michael Cleveland. Yeah, I come down to take some guitar lessons off of Michael, and on my second lesson, he said, "Man, you ain't learning shit." I said, "What?" He said, "You ain't learning shit." He said, "All you want to do is sing." He said, "Do you ever practice?" I said, "Well, no, not really." He said, "Well, I don't need your money. If you want to jam, let's just jam."
What are the typical things that you like to do once you get to a festival?
Well, find a good jam session that I can get into.
And it doesn't make any difference if you never met the people before, right?
No, I just ask them, "Hey, can I play with you a little bit?" And, you know, they say, "Yeah, okay."
Well, let me put it this way. I've had a few people come up to me that I know and trust very well saying, "Hey, have you played with Michael Cleveland yet? You know, have you really checked him out?" And I said, "Well, I've heard him play, and he sounds like a really strong bluegrass fiddle player." And they say, "There's a lot in there. There's a lot more in there than just a bluegrass fiddle player. There's a lot in there. You know, this is a special guy." So I've been wanting a chance to play with him and see what it feels like and see what he is. And he's one of the guys, for sure. He's one of the A-team. It's exciting for me that he's as good as he is. Like, I don't know how to put it except that sometimes when you play with people who've been playing for a long time, they might be spaced out or tuned into that, or they might be drifting, playing good. But with him, that intensity of focus is very exciting. So it brings out a lot in me, because I like to play with people who play that way. And you can't let anything slide. Every moment is being observed.
I used to imagine me in a band. Yeah, I visualized it early on. As a matter of fact, when I was a little kid, I'd have a string with like 5 knots in it. And I would just imagine that first knot's guitar player, second knot's mandolin player, third's banjo player, fourth is bass player, and the knot on the end is fiddle player. And I would just go nuts, just swinging that string around. And just in time with music, even before I could play, I knew that I wanted to be in a band.
We were very excited, but the weird thing about it was I kept saying something was wrong with him. And that was long before they did ultrasounds and stuff like that. You know, everybody, his dad and his grandparents would say that was normal, and I'd say, no, I just know something's wrong with him.
I remember when Michael was born, well, the doctor, the first thing he said, well, we've got a cleft lip, which was no big deal. You know, they said, you know, it's no big deal, it's repairable. And, you know, because we both his mother and I both kind of panicked.
We knew that he had the cleft lip and palate, and they took him into the nursery. Apparently, they had said something to his grandmother about something being wrong with his eyes. The next thing I know, his pediatrician was in my room and saying, you know, we need to move him to children's, and he's got a problem with his eyes. He's got the cleft lip and palate. We're pretty sure he has heart problems, and we need to get him there.
So we get to Children's Hospital, and the doctor over there said, well, you know, that there's usually, when someone has more than one birth defect, which with cleft lip and palate and a blindness, then usually there's something else wrong somewhere. And, you know, so they had thought at the time that probably he had an extra chromosome, which would have been Down syndrome. The test for that took a week. And so we sat there for a week and we just went through hell. And then they came out and said that he didn't. So, you know, that was just the happiest thing. And then, so, you know, I kind of think after that week, you know, we were good no matter what.
There's a general principle in embryologic development in humans, in fact, most vertebrate species, but certainly in humans, that structures that are in the midline of the cranium and the face develop roughly synchronously, and oftentimes you'll see a pattern of abnormalities of development that goes together. In Michael's case, what that involves is failure of a structure in his brain called the corpus callosum to develop, and a second structure called the septum pellucidum, both of which really function as information highways that connect the two hemispheres of the brain, the right and the left hemisphere, which makes it remarkable that he can do what he does musically, because most people who have that problem really have a hard time keeping track of what their hands are doing unless they can see them, and he can't see them. What happens is the lack of visual input enhances your ability to use other senses in a creative way. And the classic thing is musical talent.
Michael was 18 months old in that picture. You can kind of see his little mischievous self there. I think he only had like 4 teeth at the time, and it was before they had given him his prosthetic eye. But I don't know, it's always been my favorite. I remember he was sitting on his grandmother's lap, and he said, "Nana, can you see me?" And she said, "Yeah, I can see you." And he was touching her face, and he said, "I can see you too." And that was kind of when I think he figured out that he sees differently.
I was always around bluegrass, always liked listening to it. I would go to my grandparents' house, and they had a record collection, and 8-track tapes were the thing at the time, you know, it's the early 80s. And so I remember many nights just going, having my head on one of those speakers of the 8-track player and just going to sleep there. The first time I heard a fiddle, I was around 4 years old. I remember being at a bluegrass show around southern Indiana and hearing this fiddle player play the Orange Blossom Special. And that just really rocked my world. From that point on, I was just all about that song, and I would collect versions of it for years. Everybody still, you know, with the fiddle, they ask, well, can you play The Devil Went Down to Georgia, and can you play Orange Blossom Special? And so a lot of fiddlers just got tired of it, but I just always had a soft spot for that song just because of, you know, if it wasn't for that song, I wouldn't be playing the fiddle. So I'll play it anytime anybody asks.
For my final tune, I'd like to do a tune called Orange Blossom Special.
The thing was, I wanted to do it so bad that if I was working on something, or if I got in the mood to play, I would play. It'd be hours. And it's a slow process, you know. Sometimes you get, you know, you get 3 notes. You figure one thing out, then, you know, you're just a little bit closer every time. Yeah, I mean, if you want to do something bad enough, and if you put your whole life into it, you'll figure out a way to do it.
So much.
Well, the first time I walked into the classroom at the Kentucky School for the Blind, the music teacher, Miss Nolan, came over and she was asking me, she said, well, I hear you want to play the violin. What makes you want to play the violin? I said, well, I don't know much about the violin, but I want to play the fiddle. I started playing, and I remember it was just a long time before I could even play anything.
One of the things that's kind of interesting to know about a residential school is that there's nothing real special about you being blind except for that's what we do. We work with mobility, and of course we have an academic component on this campus, and the school is 175 years old, so it's been here a long time. And we've seen tons of very, very, very good musicians and other professions, lawyers, judges. But yeah, Michael probably is the most famous person. You know, you've got somebody that's out and about and making a living, and every year winning all kinds of awards for his ability to play. Very early in my career, I realized that for a parent to make a decision to let a child come to a residential school, you have to be a parent that understands one thing. The fact that they're going to be away from their child, their young child, every afternoon, and if they're staying residentially in the dorm, you have to understand that is going to be really good for my child in the long run, but it's going to be very tough on me as a parent right now.
I remember being taken to the dorm the first time. I was 4 years old. I had no idea what was going on. I remember just being really upset and just in the dorm and just lost and didn't know what was going on. And I remember being in my room and this kid came in who it turned out was my roommate, and I was probably crying a little bit and just talking about how, you know, this is awful and I don't know what's going on or whatever. And I remember this kid saying, well, you're here forever now. You're never going home again. I don't remember very much about my first days at school, but I remember after school every day I would be in a room with this kid and he would just repeatedly tell me, you are never going home. You are here forever. And I thought it was true. And I was, Friday when I went home, I was just shocked.
The way Michael's parents chose to raise him, that I applaud them for, is they never told him he couldn't do anything. Never. So if he wanted to try something, he tried it. Sometimes he succeeded on the first try, sometimes not, and that's where the determination came in, because he was willing to do it again.
Hear that? One more. Do it one more time. There it is. Okay? I want you to practice now. Just let me put this on tape so you can listen to it now. Here's what I want you to practice on. I want you to practice on a down bow, and then an up bow, and then a down bow, and then an up, and just keep repeating that.
The teachers at school and everybody were wondering for a while whether I'd actually be able to play, because I was making so little progress early on.
We have a bluegrass band, and we had, 4-piece band, mandolin, guitar, bass, banjo, and my son he just got interested in wanting to just even go with us. And he knew that we didn't have a fiddle, so he kept telling me, Dad, I'm going to be your fiddle player. So we got him a cheap fiddle, and he started taking lessons. And when we saw that he was going to keep up with it, we got him a better fiddle. And then at that point, he just started progressing really quickly.
It's really fun. Good company, good bands.
He's a boy of few words, so he watches Mike, and he knows that because of Mike's disabilities, if you will, that he's going to have a different style of fiddling just because his hearing maybe is enhanced. And so he's going to pull things off on a fiddle that nobody else really probably will ever do. And so he hears that, and he wants to mimic that. He loves Michael's style. It's not only helping him musically, I think it helps him with his school studies. I mean, it helps him focus on things. I mean, he knows that he just can't pick something up and be able to do it right off the bat. It's going to take practice and hard work, and so he can apply that to every aspect of his life.
Well, I'm speechless right now. I don't know what to say. It's awesome though.
I think you gotta want to do it and really have fun doing it to really be good at whatever it is. And I was really fortunate that my parents never really were really super hard on me and pushed me to play. I always knew that if I got interested in something else and absolutely did not want to play, I didn't have to play.
And when he is listening to a song, he'll hear something that Michael's done, and he'll spend an hour and a half or 2 hours just on one little lick until he feels comfortable with it, and then he slowly speeds it up until he's got it.
But when it's separately, especially faster, it gives it a more staccato. You know, or you could go.
Bluegrass music is a great thing, and I hope more kids get involved in it.
So I don't know, I'd say for the most part, keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. That'll be $400.
Well, we've got a fine fiddle player here on the left-hand side. What is your name?
Michael Cleveland.
Michael Cleveland. Give him a hand, would you?
It's kind of like it all fell into place, because when Michael was of age to where he was starting to play, he wanted to do the contest and things like that, my parents were both retired. And they had just retired, so they were young enough, they really enjoyed going to festivals, and so they would load up on a Friday after Michael got out from school, and they go to a festival, and they wouldn't be home until Sunday. They go to Owensboro, they go to, you just name it, Clarksville, Tennessee, or of course I was working, so I kind of got left at home most of the time, but he'd come home from a festival and he just knew twice as much as when he left.
He had competed in the Clarksville, Tennessee Fiddle Championship, and he was exhausted. I was trying to get him up so that we could come home, and he just went to sleep. But he had played so much and so hard that the next day he was just exhausted. He just, had no intentions of getting up so that we could come home.
I've heard a lot of people say that people are just born with talent, and oh man, they just picked up an instrument and started playing immediately. And I don't care how good you are, it's not like that. It takes a lot of work. It does take some talent, of course, but you have to put the time in if you're going to play. It's not an overnight thing.
Michael practiced on a guitar, and I kind of questioned that at one time. I kind of asked him, I said, what's I never hear you pick up the fiddle. But it's kind of like he said, well, if I can understand from the guitar point of view, I can play the fiddle better. And it really helped him with his fiddle playing. And I kind of say something to him. I said, man, you got a contest tomorrow or next week or something. Don't you think you ought to be working, on your tunes or something? Oh yeah, I'm working on them, And I wouldn't hear the fiddle really.
He's one of the few gifted musicians that, depending on which instrument he wants to specialize in, that's what he'll be great on. If he ever wants to stop playing fiddle and just plays mandolin, then you're going to hear one of the best that's ever picked it up.
My favorite stuff to listen to were live shows, even when I was little. My favorite albums, just because it was authentic, you knew that what you were hearing was the way it was. There wasn't any tricks, there's no studio. You could hear different solos on the live show than what you heard on the record.
It's not just about the music. You want to influence people. You want to be a spiritual light to the world through your playing. And I think the great players, the great masters, they have that in their head. So if they have to sleep in the car, if they have to drive 15 hours to the gig, that's inconsequential. They get to do their art. They get to be in front of people. A musician has a tough time making a living because there are too many musicians. There are millions of musicians. A lot of them will play for nothing. A lot of them will play for $100. So you've got to really be at the best you can be and be the best you can be for a long time before you get enough fan base built up to follow you that will support you financially.
We're basically just parking lot pickers. That's all we were. And Michael took us from that to the level that we're at now. And it's him. I mean, he did it. We worked at it, but you know, we wouldn't have recently won the Instrumental Group of the Year through IBMA. Without Michael, we could have never ever dreamed of winning something or getting to that level.
He's one of the great masters, one of the true masters. And that's not just recognized by the show promoters or the ticket buyers, but if you look at the IBMA awards that he's won, here's 2,500 professional bluegrass musicians that have voted him the king. Well, that's not a popularity contest necessarily. That's somebody who's really into the craft of music. These people are really into the art form of music and the gears and bolts of music. And they have said, Michael is the king.
Fiddler's Dream, Michael Cleveland and Flamekeeper.
Michael Cleveland and Flamekeeper.
I just want to say I'm so proud of the guys in the band, and they work so hard at it, and it's just an awesome band with an awesome bunch of guys. And thank you all. Thanks so much.
You know, it's just one of those kind of things that you just don't see. You don't see a guy just shredding a fiddle like none other, like he does. And the fact that he's blind and he's up there and you can just see the joy in his face while he's doing it. It's pretty exciting to watch. Everything has rhythm to it. It's not just there. It's not floaty. It's aggressive, and it's always pushing. It's like a fireball, you know?
All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3.
Because of his disabilities, I think that's why he plays like he does. His hearing in his left ear, any normal person who had hearing wouldn't play that hard because it would, you know, it would hurt your ears. So he's hearing the sound from back here, you know, bearing down on it, and it, you know, I think that's why he learned to play so powerfully. That fiddle he has is loud. Any normal person, if they bared down on it like he does, they wouldn't have hearing in their left ear for long. Anytime you have a visually impaired person and you're carrying, you know, 1,000 instruments and luggage and everything else, it gets kind of, you know, difficult navigating through places.
All right, let's see, these t-shirts. Or they won't do that. Okay, T. All right, here you go. You're gonna have to lead the way a little bit to the left so I can get this.
You grab a fiddle or anything?
Let's go, Rob.
Okay. We get in the van and we have like a couple of hours of catching up. We talk about life and, you know, especially if we haven't seen each other for a while, you know. Nathan will talk about his kids, and and Josh, just got married. You just kind of visit and play catch up for a couple hours, and then it's just dead silence because everybody's on their phones, or I'm usually back in the back listening to an audio book. When you spend that much time together, you're bound to get on everybody's nerves. Everybody has their own quirks and all that kind of thing, But I think the music does a lot, If you have a really good show, you're gonna be in a better mood,
Ever since you've been leaving me, I've been wanting to cry. Now I know how it feels for you. I've been wanting to die, but it's much too late for goodbye. Yes, it's much too late for goodbye.
Bluegrass is tough to make a living in bluegrass music. I work a job still. Even though Michael's as great as he is, it's still difficult to make, a really good living and support a family off of bluegrass musicians' wages. There are some out there, some of the biggest names and biggest entertainers that do it. They're able to do it. I'd like to get to that point,
The thing is time. This band has only been a band for like 10 years, and that's what it takes is time for people to get to know who you are. Doesn't matter how good you are. If you've been around long enough, people know who you are.
He has learned a lot. In the 5 years that I've been with him, he's really, come a long way from where he started. He's such a good musician and so much better than we are that we don't always have our best days. It's just the reality of it. So sometimes, we'll be playing and not playing real great, and he gets frustrated at us. And, he lets us know, which is good. We need to know if we're not doing something right, but sometimes it's not a helpful way of putting it. But we've had conversations about it, and because I told him, I said, man, it doesn't help to tell us, we're doing something bad right before we get ready to go on stage, because that's going to put us in a bad mindset. So he kind of was like, okay, realize that. It's just something that he doesn't have any formal education in business, and running a band is basically business. And Michael loves to play music. He doesn't claim to ever want to have been a business person. I don't think he really wanted to have his own band to begin with, but he wants the control of what he's playing, and to have that, you have to have your own band.
I think everybody should have the burden of running a band. If you're a musician, just to know how much work goes into it. He's just really, really learned the hard knocks of life. You don't know anything about business until you really actually have to get in there and run one.
The main thing with me is I never did want to be a band leader, so I just wouldn't. A lot of times I wouldn't know how to handle things. If something's going on that you're not happy with, I try to speak up, because my first inclination would be just to, not say anything about it and just let it keep going and build up and build up. All it wants you to say the wrong thing and you handle it badly.
The technology of the cell phone has allowed him to become a better manager, because he can, keep track of all the information. Otherwise he'd have to memorize all that. He's on his phone a lot, and it's just an absolutely wonderful tool for him.
Q W W E E S F O. Zip code, music phone, travel phone, turbo skip, messenger, Adobe Acrobat, booking, twins, artist, Sims, page 3 of
It's incredible how that's changed what he can do.
FaceTime, iTunes U, iMovie, Pages.
He just sits there and figures it out. There's an app for everything, and then there's an app for a blind person to learn how to use the apps.
Calc, podcast, extras folk, iTunes, iMovie, Pages, Keynote, ATN, social folder.
I could do pretty much anything you can do. And it's great. I never did think that I would be able to text or do email on the phone or Facebook or anything else. I always used the computer for all that. And I never could text. I had a flip phone for years.
I would have no clue how to order a lift car, but he'll get on there and, 30 seconds, he's got a car on the way. He'll get the driver's name, the phone number, how long it's going to take him to get here. He'll give him a call and let him know, say, come around back to the house.
This way, even if the folks are on vacation or whatever, if there's a jam I want to go to, or if there's a show or something that I need to be at, I can get there.
If you're trapped, if you're disabled in any possible way, just to get the chains off so that you can do things by yourself and don't have to ask anybody is just a great thing.
The South, Andrew, Braun, Court, Greg, Heather, Kel, Louis, Ron, V, William, Bill, William Law, Bill Law, Live Bill Law 01, this person ISN apostrophe, favorites,
To be able to do everything he does, it's just pretty crazy. Is that a triple stop or?
Well, no, it kind of sounds like it, but your fourth finger, yeah, you got it.
Like, I was a big fan of bluegrass, fan of Mike's, and I went and saw him play up in Brooklyn, New York. It was a great crowd, like a young crowd, and they were pretty revved up, and I don't know if they knew what they were going to hear, but they just lit it up, and the place went nuts. It was super fun.
Yeah, man, that's it.
And am I going for D natural or D sharp with my fourth finger?
D sharp. Yeah, so the kickoff, it starts with a 7th, and then it goes 4, 5, 1. So it kicks into the 4.
I'm in my office just having a fiddle lesson with him. You got to remind yourself every once in a while, because it's pretty cool. You can't do that in any other genre. You're not going get guitar lessons from Eddie Van Halen or something like that. It's not happening.
Yeah.
First of all, he can tell whether you're bowing something right or wrong. He can't see what you're doing, but he knows if you're playing an up bow or a down bow. That was kind of blew me away in the beginning.
A friend of mine gave me one of the Michael Cleveland and Flamekeeper CDs, and ever since that moment I was like, this is amazing! This is incredible! So I just ate it up. It feels so easy, actually, to have Skype lessons with Michael. He just is so full of joy. You can always aspire to be better, as a player, yes, but also just as a person. That's the other thing about Mike is, he's just the nicest person. He's really thoughtful in how he's teaching, and he's really thoughtful about who he's talking to, and that is completely inspiring, because it just makes you want to be a better person.
It's kind of funny. My brother lives in Florida, and he was telling somebody that I played with Michael, and he said, "Oh yeah, I know Michael. He's a drunk, isn't he?"
When you're an artist and you come off stage and like Michael, he likes to pick, he likes to jam. So when he's done, he's going to the parking lot or a campground or wherever, and he's out there picking for fun. And the first thing everybody wants to do is give you a beer. The second thing is they want to feed you. One or the other. Drink's usually number one. So, you know, it's easy to fall in that trap of taking a beer here and a beer there.
We all drank and stuff, but we all kind of knew our limit. We all knew when, okay, I don't want to be drunk tomorrow. I don't want to have a hangover tomorrow. Let's hang it up, you know. He was an alcoholic. I mean, that's plain and simple truth about it. If he had the chance to drink, he was drinking.
He'd put a lot of alcohol down, and that'd just be, you know, kind of on a hanging out night. He'd drink a couple of big beers at the restaurant. When we'd go there, he'd almost always, you know, get one.
We'd drive him home, and we'd take a different route to get to his house so we could, because they're always had the gas station there where he'd want to stop and get those extra 3 or 4 beers for the night. And we'd reroute, and we started to figure out different ways where we can, oh man, they're not serving anymore, you know, sorry, we got to go. They're getting ready to close, you know. Start making excuses because it got to being a real hassle, you know. The dude's blind, and that's never a problem, but the drinking was really starting to become a handicap.
So Michael had tried to quit a few times. I know that John had really put a lot of pressure on him to quit, but he didn't want to quit. So he was really hard to travel with during those periods. It was a pretty dark period there for Flamekeeper. We weren't real happy, but we knew he was going through a lot, and so we understood and put up with it. But we had to finally say, man, look, you got to chill out about your attitude. And so just anybody that's coming off of any kind of alcoholism, it's tough.
I think he finally one day he just realized that he was not going anywhere. It was the same thing day after day after day, and it wasn't going to change. Music is important to him, and I think he understood that as long as it was going the way it was, music was secondary to the alcohol. And I don't think music is ever going to take a back seat to anything in his life. It's always going to be his top priority.
So he said that he was going to quit, and I said, okay, that's good. And I said, well, if you're going to quit, we need to quit drinking on the road, period. Everybody. He gave it all up, and I'm glad he did, because honestly, I don't think he'd still be around if he'd kept up the way he was.
Yeah, I think it's been 2 or 3 years now since he's drank a drop. That's incredible. That just shows you what kind of will he has. When he's done with something, he's done with it.
Yeah, he's leveled out. He doesn't have the mood swing type of thing that you would have with alcoholism. And that's a hard thing to it's a hard thing to let go of. But you know what? That kind of thing is what legends are made of.
Even when I was drinking, I knew that there was something that wasn't right. I knew that I had a problem with it. I had some times where I could have really, where I did hurt myself, or, I embarrassed myself in front of important people. It just seemed like there at the end of my drinking, I was always out of money. And I was always having to get money because I was always broke. So I'd have an embarrassing experience, and then I'd think, oh man, I got to do something about this. And, so I'd look up books, on stopping drinking. If you don't want to quit whatever you're doing, you're not going to do it. I wasn't going to do it just because, other people said that I needed to. I feel great. I have a lot more energy, you know, and the main thing is wake up and your head doesn't hurt, and I don't have to wonder about what I did the night before.
A young person that grows up around great art is going to have that as their base level. That's going to be their starting point. So after they reach that level of whatever their icons are, whoever sets the standard for them, once that young person reaches that level, they have to go up. They're either going to quit playing entirely and go do something else, or they're going to keep expanding on that art form. He keeps evolving as a player because of the other things that he's exposed to. And the greater he becomes, the more he's going to attract world-class musicians to him, and they're going to influence him further.
One, two, 3, go.
Music can be the highest form of expression. It can take you to the highest places that really maybe nothing else can in the same way. There's just some, really amazing connection that we get when we play.
You can't think too far outside the box for Andy. Musically, he's crazy. That's about all I know to say.
Music can go to a place where words can't go. It's not encumbered by the definition of the words. Creating contemplative and meditative states and reaching, to a very, very high place.
It's amazing how this music business works. There are people who hear you play that you just aren't even aware of.
Like what I do with Michael, though, is we start pretty much in the genre, but then we slowly begin to open it up and see what other possibilities are harmonically and rhythmically, where the spirit can take us, so to speak.
You play whatever you feel like playing, because he does. And even if it's something just outlandish, something that just wouldn't fit at all. Oh yeah, it always makes you better, because when you play in situations like that, you're going to pull from stuff that you don't ordinarily play.
He's dealt with whatever he was given in a completely positive way, and didn't let any of it prevent him from what he wanted to do. And it's an amazing thing, really amazing thing. Michael is sort of limitless as a musician in what he can do. He's just a very, very special person.
It's a good thing that tune's public domain. The writer probably come after us to kill us.
That got to some interesting...
Yeah.
We were born and raised in Switzerland. I remember when we were just little kids, we just shook hands one day and said, one day we will go to America and we play music there. And 30 years later we did. This is our studio. This is where we work, the Kruger brothers. And today, Michael, our longtime friend, came down and we got to play some music together, which was really awesome because we haven't seen him in a long time.
Oh, it's always great to play with the Kruger brothers. They have so much musical knowledge that they can incorporate any style.
Michael has this uncanny ability to sneak in a note here and there where he feels it's just absolutely amazing to play with him. You can't visually cue him, so he picks up on musical cues much better than anybody else I know.
I can go places and Uwe is right with me. We do the same things.
Yeah.
And it's like you're thinking on the same plane somewhere. And Michael always tries to get there with you. You know, he's not just executing his thing.
No.
You know, he's always trying to find out where can we somehow connect? And then he does it. And there's always this moment where you wonder, how did he know that I wanted to go do that? You know? And then when I do it with him, he smiles every time. Every time I do something where I know he's gonna go and I'm with him, he smiles.
I think the main thing is just listening, you know? Whether I'm playing with them or whether I'm playing with anybody else, I just try to figure out what to play to add to what they're doing and at the same time not to play too much.
It's always been inspirational just to see how he just attacks every moment of every day with such love and such passion for everything that he does. There's not a lot of people in this world that can inspire that kind of feelings.
If somebody's a lawyer and he practices law, everything that he sees in his life is connected to that. He gets up in the morning, every action in his life, he practices law. Somebody who practices medicine. Somebody who's a practicing Christian is practicing religion. And a musician can practice or he can practice. And it's a decision that you have to make at one point how you want to approach the problem. If you want to just practice, you can do that and you can get pretty damn good with it. But I think to take it all the way, you practice. When Michael gets up in the morning, he doesn't think anything but music. I never saw him do anything else but play music. And therefore he practices music just like other people would practice cooking or practice being a parent. All these things that take your whole heart.
You know, in my opinion, he's just the ultimate fiddler of all time. There's nobody that took it that far, you know. And I doubt that there ever will be another, you know, that will take it that far.
When the sun comes up over Carolina hills, why did I decide to roam?
Never hit 17 when you play against a dealer, for you know that the odds won't ride with you. Never leave your walk.
We're both pretty hard-headed guys. We've gotten better through the years at being able to rein all that in and use it in a good direction. And we're no different than most brothers. We can get in a pretty terrible, ridiculous argument and say things that you normally wouldn't say to other people, and then 20 minutes later, we'd be fine.
The Biebelhauser brothers are Aaron and Adam, and they are twin brothers. Aaron is an electrician, and Adam Biebelhauser works for UPS.
The first time I ever played with Mike was actually at an open jam at a little bar in Louisville. A couple of friends were there, and Mike walked in the door with a banjo case in his hand. He was playing banjo the first time I met him. I didn't really even know he was a fiddle player. I knew of him, but the first time I played with him, he was playing banjo. So he's a great banjo player, it turns out.
It really started just as a little jam session over here. We were going to get together anyway to rehearse as a four-piece. And I thought, see if Mike wants to come over. We'll play some stuff. It won't be too far out of the box, but it'll be different than our regular bluegrass get-togethers.
At the end of the night, it was like, man, we got to book a gig.
He was the perfect instrumentalist, perfect backup, perfect soloist to add to what we had going on.
That guy is unbelievable. He's got such a big heart. I feel like he really kind of elevates everybody, you know?
The first thing that's important is relationships, you know, with other people. Mike has become one of my best friends, really, to be perfectly honest with you. I mean, we've seen each other through some ups and downs, exciting times, working on exciting projects, and through tougher times with personal things going on, family things going on. And he's always a phone call away. If he's on the road, he'll always answer the phone. It's not uncommon for him to call when he doesn't need anything at all.
People view him as a traditional bluegrass musician, but his approach and his style and technique in a lot of ways aren't traditional, really. He's in a lot of ways progressive. He does traditional songs that people like, and then he does his own thing.
Far away from where you started out, so damn long, just now find it now that the days go by. It ain't no use to cry.
I think that people are going to remember Mike for being a really good person, and I think people are going to be listening to things that he's recorded long after the rest of us are gone. I think people are going to be listening to the things that he recorded going, man, how did he do that? And people are going to be trying to copy those things.
The world's just a big old place, man, with interstates and buildings. I don't really think about a lot of that stuff. I mean, it's just a big old place, and I don't know, really. You learn to trust, that's one thing that they really taught me. I remember going out with my grandpa in the boat, and the dog Old Blue was rocking the boat, and I was little, I was kind of scared, and he's like, oh, it's all right, I'm not going to let anything happen. You just learn to trust, trust people. I don't really, I mean, until I had to go to the blind school, I can't recall, like, really noticing a difference other than my brother would, lead me around, or my mom, or, but I mean, I didn't think nothing. I didn't think like, oh, I'm blind and they can see.
Brian is probably as close as could be to a brother to Michael. What's the odds of two people, both of them with the same disability and the same likes, being that close together? If I got a problem and he'll tell me over the phone, he said, well, this could be this or it could be that, and then he'll say, if you need help, just, I'll come over and do it.
There are pins on this cover, and they have to fit in these slots. So 12.60. Had I listened to a lot of people, I wouldn't never have, I wouldn't never have worked on engines and things. I'd have, sat behind a desk somewhere. But I wanted to do it, and I fought for it, and I'm still, I'm always learning. Hold me, hold mine, what's gonna become of me? In downtown, fooling around, no one to cry for me. I remember Mike's grandma, Marie, would be walking around with him. I remember meeting him like he had to have been 2 or 3. She knew I played music, and she knew I was blind, and she enjoyed visiting, and I enjoyed visiting, and so the years went by, we started getting to play a lot. If I call him, if he can help me, he will, and the same with him. He knows if he called me, it don't matter what it is, if I could help him, I'd do it.
Brian could have easily done anything that I've done. I think in some cases he hasn't had the opportunities that I've had.
Every day being around Michael and Brian, man, it's just an inspiration, because it's, they just keep right on going. They do things that, man, I'm just shocked. I wish I could do what they do. It's just amazing.
He plays like it's the last night ever. I don't care if you're in the basement, if you was out here, if you was on the Grand Ole Opry. It's just wide open. it's my last show. I'm gonna give it, I'm gonna give it all I got. There's not gonna be nothing left when he's done.
Lessons from a Child. The little boy next door went out to play, so I listened to the words that he had to say. Since this little guy was not yet quite 2, I doubted there was much he could do. I heard him say he was busy as a bee, but it would be hard, Michael's blind, you see. He touched the flower, then smiled in surprise, then lifted it up as if thanking the skies. He would take a step, then stumble and fall, get right back up and reach for the wall. A bird sang out, so he stopped for a while, then across his face spread out a big smile. Then out in the open he wandered to play. He felt the warmth and sun, he'd say. The trees would rustle and start to bend, another smile would come again. One thing this little guy made very clear, I never saw what he could hear. I didn't enjoy each thing I would feel, I took them for granted, to him they were real. He smiled at each wonder, no matter how small, I took in some things while he took in all. Though Michael can't see, he knows quite a lot, I wish I had all the insight he's got. He knows the world is a beautiful place, and he proves it by all the smiles on his face. His world isn't black and it sure isn't bare. He has so much to give and so much to share. He's a beautiful child that I'm lucky to know, and he has never ceased to amaze me so.
I know a lot of people who they play for a living and they play on the road, and when they get done, the last thing they want to do is see an instrument. But I always like to play. I want to do as much as I can and take it as far as I can go.
Fearlessness. He plays fearless, and it's intoxicating to play with him because he makes you play fearless. And so the sky's the limit for somebody like that. If somebody that gifted already can get better, he will, and it'll be pretty inspiring to watch and hear.
Michael can do anything he wants. It just depends on what does he want.
I think the limitation for him is wherever he sets his own boundaries. And, it's hard for me to predict what he's going to do because he can do so much.
That's just like the kid he is. He's a blast. That's all you could ever hope for. Somebody play like that, and then this easy hang, and away you go, laughing and eating and playing music. That's a good life.
The main thing is just try not to put limitations on yourself. You can do just about anything that you want to do. Where there's a will, there's a way.